It was a margin of error race. You needed high turnout. What did your polls tell you where the race was heading into Election Day?
Well, Dan, you and I talked prior to the election, and just to rewind, I think when Kamala Harris became the nominee, she was behind. We kind of climbed back.
Yeah, this is the craziest part of this, is that the new information shows that the Kamala Harris internal numbers also never showed that she was beating Trump. It is a bit of a shocker, for the record. This is actually a shocker. Harris campaign aide saying that internal polling never had her ahead of Trump is a shocker. Why is it a shocker? Because they didn't even change their campaign strategy, and they acted like they were throwing up LeBron numbers, dude. It's crazy. Like, they were throwing on purpose. Like, what the was going on? Kamala Harris's internal numbers showing that they were doomed from the jump is nuts. It's nuts, especially when they were like, yeah, shit's looking bad, and then we just got to keep moving right.
And even post-debate, we still had ourselves down, in the battleground states, but very close. And so I think by the end, it was a jump ball race, and I think we needed some things to break our way. Maybe Trump's election day turnout would underperform. Our election day turnout would, either be at level or overperform. And, we'd win more of the people who decided in the last 3 or 4 days. I think our data and the New York Times data and other public data suggested we did have some progress with undecideds at late October. So it was a dead heat race. But, at the end of the day, the political atmosphere was pretty brutal. And that's not an excuse. You had right track, wrong track, I think 28-72, about 70% of the country saying they were angry and dissatisfied.
Yeah, and we saw that. We saw that, just like I constantly mentioned. Remember, this was a thing that I mentioned all the time, and the campaign was like, we got to move directly move towards Joe Biden, but then only try to outflank him by going more to the right. We saw and did nothing. We saw and sometimes even did worse than nothing. We saw that, and we did the worst possible thing you could do.
You had Trump's approval rating on his first term frustratingly high, 48-51, depending on the state. Obviously, the incumbent president's approval rating around 38-41, depending on the state. And, I think the economy and inflation still driving a lot of votes. So I think given that we had a challenging political environment, the fact that we got the race to dead heat was positive, but boy, it was slow moving. And I think we were focused on 7 states. That's our windshield into the world, the battleground states. But, what we saw on election day was, New Jersey and California and Connecticut and New York, massive shifts. So I think where Kamala Harris campaigned, we were able to keep the tide down a little bit, but it ended up being a pretty strong, tailwind for Donald Trump. And I think it's worth reminding everybody, we saw in 22, even though that was a pretty decent Democratic year, we saw these shifts. We saw them in 20, we saw them in 16. Trump specifically, but Republicans generally.
Please, man, be honest. The biggest mistake Harris made was saying the only difference between Biden, she would have 1 Republican in the government. She should have said 2. You're right. You're right. Americans obviously were like, actually, how about all Republican members of the cabinet? That's what they voted for. And that's the only method to win. That's the only way that we can win. We have to become Republicans. We just have to be Republican. We are the real Republican Party. Please vote for us. Why is nobody voting for us? Yes. Comments. An entire team talking over 90 minutes and not one good answer to a single question. This is actually worse than I thought. Actually, we did really, really good. It was like super hard. The long and short of it is none of these people should ever run a national campaign again. The Obama era is over. Let me save you 90 minutes. They learn nothing. It's like listening to corporate marketing department. They don't actually get customer/votes. There's such a huge disconnect. Pod Save America is in a unique intersection because they are directly tapped into Democratic establishment. They were a part of the Democratic establishment under the Obama era. And they have immediate access to the people that run these campaigns, but they are an independent media operation, which means they get comments, which means that their audience is not directly, MSNBC watchers. The older video that I did with Pod Save America from before the election.
Welcome to Pod Save.
Oh, here.
Winning those voters.
Dude, if you go back and watch this video, it is so different. Bro was spitting straight facts and no one in the Democratic Party was listening. Hasan is right. I'm a Democrat at 41. The campaign is making me sad. They keep moving right. Dude nailed what happened this week. I have my disagreements with Hasan, but he was right about the bro vote. Aged like fine wine. Hasan was right. Aged very well, Hasan. Sounds like Hasan was right. Trump won the Gen Z vote. They should have had this dude in their campaign. All his criticisms that were even before the election turned out to be the exact reasons why the Dems lost the election. Vindicated once again, permanently. We need a Rogan, but entirely different except for aesthetic. Yeah, this is why, while it is incredibly self-serving for me to tell every liberal person that I'm the Joe Rogan of the left because they're desperately looking for one, and then they should give me billions of dollars so that I can be the Joe Rogan of the left. I still have to be honest and say that you can't podcast your way out of this issue.
Were you able, there was a 1 month period between the debate and when the president actually dropped out. Obviously, it seemed like dropping out could be a possibility. Were you able to do any thinking or planning in that 1 month period about what a race with the vice president would look like? Or did you have to sort of start cold on that first day, the moment you got the call or the statement went out?
I mean, we started cold. There was no planning involved in any other candidates. I mean, we were honestly in crisis management mode of keeping President Biden in the race, convincing, Democratic allies that he could still do this. And one of the things was trying to keep the president out on the road as much. We were still doing everything we could from a campaign, and he made the decision that he did not want to continue on. And he pulled some of the senior leadership together and said that he was going to be with the vice president. It also wasn't anything that our team took for granted to just say, okay, she is the nominee. We knew that there was still a situation where we had to shore up delegates, and that's where we started from. And then after that point, that is when we began to say, okay, how can we define her? Also, Trump's favorabilities numbers were creeping up, as Pluff said, and we had to do something about that as well. And so it was a lot of walking and chewing gum at the same time, but there really was no sort of contingency planning to turn the race over to her right after that debate or at any point until President Biden definitively said he wasn't going to continue on.
If I ran this campaign, I'd never show my face again. Why are they admitting this? Because they're going to get rehired. That's why. What do you mean? They've literally, these people, maybe not so much, but people who were attached to the campaign as consultants have been non-stop going on CNN and all of these other outlets to talk about how it was trans people that cost them the victory over and over again. They only get to be shameless. They only get to be shameless because people let them. Okay? That's it. The Democratic Party consistently entertains and also elevates losers. Okay? Because their goals overall is to maintain the status quo. That's it. God forbid that they disrupt the status quo. Did you just say it's literally people who are running the campaign saying that? These are the people who are responsible for the campaign, yes. But other consultants that have also been that have played a formative role in the campaign have been endlessly going on CNN and defending their positions by saying we did everything right and the voters were either too stupid to recognize it, which is, something that is if you say that out loud as a campaign person, like consultant, you should be fired permanently. Or saying that it's because we were just like too pro-trans or too Latinx adjacent. There is a real crisis of talent in, I think, the Democratic Party, and it is it's kind of like police. There's a culture of it is a culture of hiring and elevating losers over and over again. By the way, these are, ironically enough, every single person here, I'm pretty sure, is also or was also a Joe Biden campaign strategist. So that's the other part of this as well. Kamala Harris did not have her own staffers. She has had a lot of turnover on her end historically, even when she was vice president. So most of the people here are they were already on the Joe Biden campaign. So if you're wondering why, they have this perspective, and if you're wondering why they might not even like shit on Joe Biden too much, that's the reason. Because that's the one like acceptable liberal take that I'm on board with, which is like if you blame Joe Biden, because there is truth to that. Okay, there is at least truth to blaming Joe Biden, because he does share a significant amount of the blame, a significant amount of the responsibility, not dropping out, not gearing up for being a transitional candidate and propping up a VP pick that could have potentially won. Even Kamala Harris, if you wanted to do that with her, like he didn't do that at all. And not dropping out until the very last moment, until he was forced to do so. Like these are all massively consequential decisions that absolutely played a formative role in Kamala Harris's defeat. But the former Biden staffers are not going to fucking say that either, especially because they worked on that campaign too.